here.
Is this all going according to plan? You think the way it's been priced and this sort of general buzz is what we've all been after?
I think so. I mean, I think coming in this year, people felt like it'd be another good year. And frankly, we've had a tremendous IPO market, particularly in tech, since 17, really, with just the exception of the fourth quarter in 18. So I think this is going according to plan. We had a little bit of a wobble with a couple deals where people thought we may have a retrade on valuations going forward, but so far so good. I mean, we're ahead of last year's pace, 86 versus 84 IPOs. We're ahead on capital because we've had a lot of chunky IPOs. We've had 6 $1 billion or greater IPOs this year versus 4 last year. So I think that's noteworthy. You know, a little more capital being raised in the first half. Question is, can we sustain it? Can we close out the year in the same way we did last year?
What's the answer to that?
Well, I think there's some risk to that. I mean, a lot of the volume right now is coming really from 2 sectors. You only see it from tech and healthcare, and then a structure in SPACs. So we're not seeing as much diversity as I'd like to see. Those first 3 I mentioned, tech, healthcare, and SPACs, account for 81% of all deals right now.
Wow.
So that's a lot of concentration. We've had notable successes outside of that in industrial, in consumer, and other areas like that, business services, but not as much as that as I'd like to see. More diversity, I think, is a better chance to having us have a strong end to the year.
Brian, on the details, this is not at all how I would have expected this year to go. Particularly, I mean, Uber and Lyft. I mean, I guess I would have sort of assumed as goes Uber and Lyft, so goes the rest of the market, or maybe they would do really well and the others therefore wouldn't because the oxygen would be sucked out of the room. What do you think the details of how this IPO season has gone so far say about the health of the IPO market?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me go back to David, though. It's going way better than planned. I mean, massively better than planned. You look at Slack to get, real detailed. They're going out this Thursday. They're going to be trading at 41 times trailing sales. There's a little-known company called Facebook. When they went out at 24 times trailing sales. And by the way, radical, Facebook was actually making money. So here's the deal. This market is correlated very strongly to the overall market. There's some good companies, but boy, they are overvalued. There's no question about it.
Overvalued at this moment or overvalued upon issue?
Both, period. Look, some good companies are coming out, no question about it. Look at Slack. They're growing well, about 70% growth rate, pretty good. Negative 30% margin, not horrible in this market. I would love for them to make money. But the bottom line is, do you want to buy a business that's going to be trading at 20 to 50, sometimes 100 times trailing sales? So going back to David's point, the market is incredibly frothy. There's no doubt about it. If the market holds, I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, I've been wrong for 2 years on this stuff. And by the way, I should have never sold my tech company last year. I should have kept it and gone public. But my point is this. Why do tech guys like me get a pass on basic fundamentals like sales growth, like profitability? It's amazing. It reminds me, newsflash, it reminds me of the year 2000 with regard to specifically tech companies. I think they're overvalued. So if you're bullish on this overall market for a year, maybe you go in. But boy, you are not buying at a discount. No way.
David, something tells me you take issue with some of this, but what do you make of the problem pricing these things when Zoom goes like this, Chewy goes like this? I mean, something's funky with valuations.
Well, I don't know that something's funky with that. We have a tremendous foundation in the market right now. The Russell, which is our primary IPO benchmark, is up about 13%. So when we have that kind of foundation and low volatility, we're going to see good IPOs, and we're going to see relatively rich valuations if we look over time. So that's to be expected. I think it's harder at the moment we're doing those deals to judge the valuation. Let's see how they perform. How do they do with that first quarter out of the gate? How do they do with the second quarter out of the gate? And let's use the benefit of hindsight to look back and say that was overvalued or undervalued when it came. Historically, when we look back, for sure, we see better IPOs in terms of long-term performance coming out in the difficult markets. You look back at like 2016, some of the tech companies that came out then, they've done tremendously well for investors. So
yeah, but
for sure, we're
David,
in a very good market right now, and I understand his point there. But what surprises me is how focused we are in just a few sectors, given the strength of this overall valuation in the market. Why aren't we seeing more deals from private equity-backed companies and other consumer companies? They're going to go to the back of deals like Levi's or Beyond Meat and others and say, like, hey, we've got a very favorable market, let's go.
Yeah.
So.
Brian, your point?
Well, my point, going back to David's point, is remember, David, I know you know this, obviously, but you're not buying a market. The market is made up of what's called companies, right? Tons of companies. You've got to look at each one. And I know you know this, obviously, but remember, this company called Microsoft, when they came out, 6 times trailing sales. Google, 19 times trailing sales. Now we got Slack coming out, 41 times trailing sales. So it's a good company. The margins are getting better. They're losing a ton of money. But are they really worth that? So here's the deal to me. It's really simple. Right now, all of us are buying a market. I agree with you that the market is good, but the party's been going on for a long time, and sometimes the music does end. I hate to be so negative, by the way. I'm just, I'm giving you my input here.